Okay, so today we're going to convert between imperial and metric. Yesterday we just did work within metric and just did work within imperial. So today it's both, okay? Also going to talk about reference. So see that word, estimating measurements and reference. So think about, first of all, when is it appropriate to estimate a measurement? When do you think you might estimate it rather than actually accurately measuring it?
If it's not exact, if it's irrational.
Well, true, if it's irrational. Basically, if you don't need to know the exact value, right? So if you're estimating, if you're going to build something or whatever, you hopefully have measured it pretty exactly, but then when you go to buy your materials, you're going to estimate, it does that look like about 3 meters or about 3 feet, okay? If you don't have an actual measuring device with you, so if you don't have a ruler, you don't have a scale to measure the mass of something, no matter what, you're going to use an estimate.
But would you want to estimate a little larger?
Yes, absolutely.
Otherwise, you don't want to have too little.
Correct. You always want to overestimate. So that if you made a mistake when you're building something, which has happened to me a few times, you have some extra that you can use, right? So here, appropriate when it's not important to, when it doesn't, so when it is not important to have an exact value. Also, when you don't have a measuring device with you. Whatever that might be. Meter stick or tape measure, that kind of thing. Okay, so what is a referent? So that often make measurement tasks easier by establishing benchmarks for a certain measurement. So basically, reference is a benchmark. Used when a precise measuring device is not available. Reference are concrete objects that you may have on hand to help estimate measurements. I don't know if you've ever built things at home or done stuff and you might go, oh, I don't have a ruler, I can't measure it. I've got a pencil for marking things off. I'm going to measure with my pencil. Okay, 1, 2, 3.5 pencils or pens. And so then I use that to measure off a piece of wood that, again, approximately what it would be. So that would be my reference for a measurement. Okay, so we're going to make a list here of things that are common to you that you could use as a referent. And you have to know this word for Thursday. Okay? Referent, not since. Okay, so it's up there. So for a millimeter, so think about a ruler, millimeter is 1 marking on that. So it's a pretty thin measurement. Some people say a piece of paper. A piece of paper is actually a little thin. So maybe a piece of cardboard or cardstock. Maybe some people's fingernail actually is one as well. So there are a few that you could choose. You can choose your own, but make sure it makes sense. So by cardstock, I mean that thick piece of paper. So I think I've done, this timeline wasn't, but this is a little bit thicker, right? So, yeah, so the piece of the thickness of cardstock. Okay, so centimeter, that could be certain, you might have a calculator, the width of it, some are a little bit too thick, maybe your cell phone, so the depth of your cell phone or a calculator. Some of it might be, so if I have a ruler here, let's note. So this one that I have here, it's actually like without the case, just a little bit more than a centimeter. There's my phone. Again, with my case, my phone is exactly 1 centimeter, right? So that's something that might be common to you.
Did you say a finger?
Yep, probably your pinky finger, right? So maybe the width of pinky finger. Meter, so that's, remember, this was a meter stick. Okay, so sometimes people will think, oh, it's the height of a table. Table is a little too short, and the desk. What you will find, measurements these days are still in imperial. So this, for this doorway, is close to meter. It's a little bit better than the height of a desk or table. It's actually, if I turn this over, it's about 1 yard. So really, you could use the width of a door for both of those. Can you get your notes out, please?
Wait, was a yard like a meter?
You were talking the whole time, so. So I'm going to put this in both places. Okay. And a kilometer, you can usually walk that. The distance walked, I think, in about 15 minutes or so. It's just a normal walking speed. Okay, then for the reference for imperial, remember I mentioned to you yesterday, it comes from imperial, from measurements of a king. So a king's foot. So say a man's. Yeah. Okay. Inch is the length of, usually it was the thumb from the tip to the knuckle. The king's thumb. Yeah, that's hard to read. Okay, so length of thumb from knuckle to tip. And a mile is longer than a kilometer, so the distance walked in about 25 minutes, I think they say. Okay. So even though we're not calculating anything here, you do have to understand what a referent is, approximately what those measurements mean, because you will be asked that on a test. No, but you have to know which would be appropriate, right? If we gave you a few, right? So state the imperial unit that is best to measure the length of a ski run. So imperial's over here. Do you think it's best to measure in inches? No. Even feet? No. Yards? No. Maybe in golf for each tee for golf, but it would be miles on, at least in Alberta, with the ski hills that we have, right? Okay, so height of a room. So if you look up, you might use feet or you might use yards. Okay, so either one. Feet are actually more common because there's just 3 feet in a yard, and in a room like this where the ceiling is quite tall, it could be in yards. And dimensions of your calculator would be inches. Remember, there's no smaller unit than inches in imperial. Okay. Then for metric, for your textbook, so those of you that have cracked it open this semester, textbook, the best unit would be centimeters. Okay, the length of your driveway would probably be meters. A vitamin pill would be millimeters. Okay, unless it's those big ones that maybe I guess it could be a centimeter and a bit, but probably millimeters. And a highway would be kilometers. So I just used the abbreviation for most of those to make it easier. Okay, so on your formula sheet, at the top right, we did yesterday between imperial, between metric, and now the bottom ones are there. So you can see it's just horizontally given to you here. So if you don't have your formula sheet, then you can still do these questions by referring to your notes. Okay. And don't abbreviate. So on a test, when we are asking you to do these, use the entire conversion, all 4 decimal places if they're given to you. Don't just round it to be shorter. It will be less accurate. Okay, guys at the back, off your phones, please. I haven't calculated anything yet, but okay. All right. Have you done the first one for me? Have you done the first one? Yeah. Okay. Well, I don't know what you're working on. So let's take a look here. Bowling lane is approximately 19 meters long. Okay, okay, folks. So we're converting from meters to feet. Take a look. We give you a lot of conversions. Okay. Do we have one from meters to feet? We do. If you didn't, maybe you would have to go meters to yards and then yards to feet, but it's given to you, 3.2808. So 19 meters times 3.2808 feet in a meter. And so those meters divide out. So it's straight multiplication. Okay, and it says to the nearest foot. So that means whole number. Okay, so 62.3352 would be 62 feet. Okay, next one, Yao Ming's height is 229 centimeters. Determine his height in feet and inches. So it's not determine his height in feet and then in inches. It means give his height. Is it 6'3"? Is it 7'2"? Is it 5'3"? Feet and inches. He's a really tall basketball player. So we want to, so centimeters to inches. Oops, go back to the previous page or look on your formula sheet. Okay, so centimeters here to inches, 0.3937. Okay, there are other ways to do it. You could divide by 2.54, however many centimeters are in an inch, but I just like multiplying. It's easier to set up. You can easily see the units divide out. Okay, don't round it. Show all your decimal places. Okay, so that's in inches. Okay, I'm doing it in steps. So I've converted it to inches. Now I'm going to convert it to feet and inches. So remember, there are 12 inches in a foot. So I'm going to divide by 12. In my calculator, I'm leaving it there. Okay, that's how many feet. So should I say he is 7 feet 5 inches?
Yeah, but if it's out of 10, you get that. Since it's out of 12, half of 12 is like bigger than half.
Right,
12
good.
would be like
So
7.7.
yes, that's a decimal. That means 0.5 whatever out of 0.100, right? Or out of 10, I should say. Inches, there are 12 in a foot. So this is incorrect. So this is going to be 7 feet. And so we take the 0 plus 0.5131 feet times 12 inches in a foot, right? So multiply that part. So in your calculator, it's easy because you can just subtract 7 and then times that answer by 12, which is 6.1573 inches. And we're just going to round to the nearest inch. So 7 feet plus 6 inches. Which makes sense. 7.5, if we rounded that, that's 7.5 feet. And half of a foot is 6 inches. Okay, so please be careful on that.
So he's 7'6"?
Mm-hmm. Yes. Not plus. You don't have to have the plus, but you have to have the units in between. Okay.
So why did you do plus 0.5131?
Why didn't I? I did.
Why did
Because this is 7.53131. So I have to have 7 plus 0.53131, but I'm converting this to inches.
that was in feet?
Correct.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so Mr. Pilley is 6 feet 2 inches tall. Mr. Ritalik is 185. Determine who is taller. So you decide in this case, are you going to go from centimeters to inches and then convert like we did in the last one to their height to feet in inches? Are you going to go from imperial to metric? I'm going to do imperial to metric, 6'2" to metric, just because it's the other way. Either way works. We just did the other way for the previous question. So I want to show you a variety. So 6, notice these abbreviations. We haven't talked about that. So an apostrophe like that means feet. Okay, a quotation mark like that means inches. So those are the short form. You see a 6 apostrophe, that means 6 feet. If you see a 2 with quotations, it means 2 inches. Okay, so this is 6 feet plus 2 inches. So I'm going to convert that to all inches. Remember, there's 12 feet in an inch. So that's going to be 72 plus 2 is 74 inches. That's how tall Mr. Pilley is. Okay, so to convert that to centimeters, then for each inch, you can look for the conversion. So 1 inch is 2.54. That's a pretty common calculation. You might end up memorizing that one just because you use it a lot. Okay, so 74 inches times 2.54 centimeters in an inch. Okay. It's 187.96 centimeters. So you can tell right away that that is greater than 185 centimeters. So therefore, Mr. Pilley is taller. It didn't ask you to state how much taller, so you could. It would be, what, 2.96 centimeters. A little more than an inch, yeah. Okay, so a truck driver knows that her semi-trailer is 3.5 meters high. The support beams of a bridge are 11 feet 9 inches high. Will the vehicle fit under the bridge? Okay, so we need to, again, you decide which one you're converting. Don't do both. So I think in the solutions in the notes, we converted both in case you did one or the other, but you don't have to do both of them, right? So the last one I did from feet and inches to centimeters. How about now I go from meters to feet and inches? So 3.5 meters. Let's go to feet. So back, meters to feet, 3.2808. Okay, so those units divide out. Oops. So that's going to give me 3.5 times 8.2808, 11.4828. Do not round early, right? Keep it until the end. So we know that that is in feet now. Okay, so we have 11 whole feet and then plus 0.4828 feet, right? And we need to convert that to inches. So we're going to multiply that by 12 inches in a foot. So those divide out. So we get 11 feet plus, and then 0.4, so subtract 11, really easy. Once you've calculated that, just subtract 11 to get the decimal 0.4828 multiplied by 12, and that's 5.7936 inches, okay? And we usually round to the nearest whole inch. It didn't say, but let's do that. That would be 6 inches. Okay. And again, you don't have to show the plus in between there once you've got to the end. So is that less than the support beams? Yes, so that's less than 11 feet 9 inches. So the truck will fit, but only with 3 inches to spare. So hopefully there's nothing sticking up anywhere. I don't know if you've ever gone under a tunnel or into a parking garage and see, like in a parking garage, they often have something hanging down from the ceiling to say, this is how high. Yep. So it gives the truck driver, it's usually a truck that's tall, right? That tall. When it hits it, it's still going to give it some space, but then it knows, okay, it's not going to make it other ways. Yeah. Other times you probably have seen it scraped. I've seen one stuck underneath the bridge before because they didn't read the sign. They don't know how tall their truck is. So it is kind of an important feature if you ever own a truck in your future.